Episode 013 of 1001 Stories of Greatness, Series 4, The Blank Page. The train screeched to a halt, and Gertrude stepped into the flurry of passengers rushing down the platform. She tucked her suitcases into a corner and scanned the thinning crowd, hoping for a familiar face. As the evening shadows lengthened into night, it became clear no one was coming. With a resigned sigh, she gripped her luggage and headed for the taxi stand. Her destination was the home of Mr. and Mrs. Lekan, dear family friends who had offered her a place to stay while she settled into her new job. The Lekans were like an extension of Gertrude's own family. As a child, she had been inseparable from their son, Ade. Though 15 years had passed, the memory of their shared laughter remained vivid. As the taxi wound through the unfamiliar streets, she felt a flicker of excitement at the prospect of reconnecting. "We are here, miss," the driver announced. Gertrude stepped out into the cool night air. Before she could even reach the doorbell, the door flung open. Mrs. Lekan was there, her face lighting up with a radiant smile as she pulled Gertrude into a suffocatingly warm embrace. "Look at you, Gertrude. You've grown into such a beautiful woman," she exclaimed. Mr. Lekan appeared behind her, his greeting equally warm, though Gertrude noticed a faint, lingering tiredness in his eyes. The next morning, Gertrude rose early. Entering the living room, she found Mrs. Lekan sitting in silence, staring at a cup of untouched tea. She seemed miles away. "Good morning, ma," Gertrude said softly. Mrs. Lekan jumped slightly, then forced a smile. Gertrude offered to help with the morning chores, but Mrs. Lekan declined, only allowing her to help plate the breakfast. When Mr. Lekan appeared, he skipped the meal entirely, muttering an excuse about not being hungry. The house, despite the warm welcome, felt heavy with an unspoken weight. As Gertrude's taxi pulled away for her first day of work, she caught a glimpse of a tall, thin figure slipping into the Lekan's front door. Curiosity piqued, but the driver sped off before she could get a good look. That evening, the mystery was solved. Standing stiffly in the living room was Ade. He wasn't the posterior boy she remembered. He stood like a statue, staring at her with an intensity that felt almost defensive. "Hi, Ade," Gertrude said, her voice bright. "It's been a long time. You've changed." He didn't blink, no smile, no nod of recognition. "Don't you remember me?" she asked with a nervous laugh. Silence. Mrs. Lekan hurried in, sensing the chill. "Ade, dear, this is Gertrude. She's staying with us for a while." Without a word, Ade turned on his heel and vanished into the back of the house. Gertrude was shaken. She knew that time and distance could alter a person, but this felt like a total erasure of the boy she once knew. Over the next few days, a haunting pattern emerged. Ade was a ghost in his own home, drifting through the hallways in silence and pointedly absent from the dinner table. Gertrude found herself wondering about his life. Did he have a job to go to, or was he simply wandering the streets to avoid the stifling air of the house? The answer began to reveal itself one morning, as Gertrude hurried towards the sound of the house to catch her ride. A sound sliced through the morning mist, stopping her cold, a muffled jagged sob. She followed the sound to a weathered garden, bench tucked away in the shadows. There, she found him. Ade sat alone, his head buried in his hands and his shoulders shaking with the violent effort of staying quiet. In that moment, he wasn't a stranger or a ghost. He was a man collapsing under a weight he could no longer carry. Ade, she whispered. He bolted upright, frantically wiping his eyes, his face flushing with shame. You don't have to hide it, Gertrude said, her voice shifting into the steady, professional tone of her vocation. I'm a life counselor, Ade. I spend my days helping people find their voices. Let me help you find yours. He didn't answer, but for the first time, he didn't run immediately. He looked at her, really looked at her, before retreating back inside. Later that evening, while helping Mrs. Lekan prepare dinner, Gertrude leaned in and asked softly, Is everything all right with Ade? He seems withdrawn, as though something is troubling him. Mrs. Lekan sighed softly. He has been through a lot, she said, but he will be fine. Gently pressed, Mrs. Lekan eventually shared the truth. Years earlier, Ade had worked diligently at a bank. When a promotion opportunity arose, he stood among the strongest candidates. Around that same period, a large sum of money went missing. Ade and a colleague were accused. The colleague was later cleared. Records showed he had been off duty that day. But Ade was arrested, tried, and sentenced to 10 years in prison. He served 3 years before the truth finally came to light. A jealous colleague, desperate for the promotion, had framed Ade. The secret unraveled when the man's wife, unable to bear the weight of guilt, confessed. Ade was released, but the man who had wronged him fled and was never caught. The bank offered Ade his job back, but he declined. Mrs. Lekan added softly. Since his release 4 months ago, Ade has withdrawn into himself, carrying a silence heavier than words. The next morning, Gertrude noticed Ade returning to the house and stepped forward to open the door for him. Good morning, Ade, she said. He nodded faintly. I spoke to your mother, she continued softly. I knew about the bank. I knew about the years you lost. Ade froze. The air between them grew heavy, the kind of silence that precedes a collapse. Life can twist us until we don't recognize our own reflections, Gertrude said, stepping into his line of sight. But as long as there is breath in your lungs, you are the author, not the victim. You are allowed to bleed, Ade, but don't let the wound become your identity. Even the deepest gashes heal if you stop picking at the scabs. She waited until he finally looked up. His eyes were tired, guided. Gertrude offered a knowing smile. The past is a closed book, Ade. The present is a blank page, and the future waits for your words. This is your script. No one else gets to hold the pen. Turn the page. Start the next chapter. Gertrude squeezed his arm gently. Talk to me when the words start coming back to you. That evening, Gertrude returned home to a sound that felt like a miracle. Laughter. The heavy shroud over the living room had lifted. Ade sat at the table with his parents, his posture straight, his voice joined with theirs. Mrs. Lekan watched to the door, her eyes bright with tears, and caught Gertrude's hands in hers. He came back to us today, she whispered. He went out this afternoon and found work as a clerk. It's a small start, but Gertrude, he's here. Ade stood up and walked toward her. For the first time, the distance in his eyes had been replaced by a quiet, burning focus. Thank you, Gertrude, he said, his voice low but firm. I'm not looking back anymore. I've decided to take your advice. I've turned the page. Gertrude smiled and pulled him into a brief, fierce hug. As the Lekans gathered around, the house felt full for the first time in years. Ade was no longer just a man who had survived. He was a man who had decided to live. Keep enjoying the episodes of 1001 Stories of Greatness at 1001storiesofgreatness.wordpress.com.